Hello and welcome to the Cosmic Heart Podcast. My name is Jessica Hope. I am your host and I'm here with Janine Palmer. Janine is an amazing, awesome author, also known as Silver Moon. Janine Palmer Silver Moon is a writer of esoteric and energy healing messages. She writes from her own healing experiences and observations, which have led her to extract deeper wisdom from within. She is a clinical hypnotherapist, a shamanic practitioner, and is passionate about emotional and spiritual healing. Janine speaks often of sacred truths, hidden keys, and the light and shadow aspects. She reminds us to remember, honor, and embrace our divine worthiness and to step out of programming. Janine shines her light on the power of forgiveness and the beauty that we hold within. Her work might be helpful or of interest to those working through initiations of spiritual alchemy and realigning to those who are connecting with love as we always are and our innate truth. Janine how long have you been an author?
Since 2015. Well, for the poetry stuff and the energy healing stuff, I did a book in 2013 just talking about some experiences that I went through. But as far as the main body of work, which is the poetic stuff mostly, end of 2015.
Yeah, you've been writing for a long time. I think I connected with you around 2016.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I believe it was 2016 because I think we connected through a group on Facebook at one point.
Yeah, we did.
That was a crazy time.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
So I
Yeah.
remember we did some work, and I wanted to ask you about this when I was talking to you the other day. I remember we did some work on healing, and I remember I was training you to do some energetic clearing practices, but didn't I did I also do Reiki training for you?
Yeah, I had the Reiki 1 and 2, but you did the Reiki Master for me. You did the attunement,
That's
and
right.
then I did the course and certification for that through you.
And then I remember it was so long ago, it feels like forever ago.
Yeah,
I
I think that
remember
was 2017-ish when we did that.
yeah, that was quite a long time ago. It feels like a blink. It really does.
Too much
Just a
stuff has
blink.
happened in between, huh?
So much. It's crazy. And then I remember you said you were doing shamanic training at the time.
Yes.
That was
I
awesome.
did a few courses in that, which was amazing.
So I never actually got to ask you what that entailed. Like what was there a lineage of shamanism that you were being trained in?
It's Peruvian shamanism that comes through the training from Alberto Villoldo, so fire shamanism. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
He's really well known in the shaman community.
It was passed down through him to these gals, and they became my teachers. And I learned a lot in the hypnotherapy training in the different courses, and that was awesome. And then with this, it was, I don't know, it was just nice to have that as well to add to it. So
Right.
it's like the more I learned, the more I was just loving it. Like, I don't know. I think we're remembering what we used to know in some
Absolutely.
respects. Yeah.
Yeah, in 2015, I was pregnant with my daughter, and I received the rights for the Munai-Ki shamanism.
Yes.
And
I did that
you,
part.
so when you did the Munai-Ki, when you received the rights,
Yeah.
what year was that?
That is a good question. I'm thinking that it was probably around 2018 ish, and then I did it again later, so maybe 18 and 19. So I did the Moon Key and then the Archangel rights because she had the one and then the other one, and that was super interesting.
Yeah, I did the angelic as well for the angelic initiation, and so my experience, it's really rare. Well, it was back then. It was really rare to find anybody else that received the Munai-Ki rights.
Mm-hmm.
And so my the person that I received them from, she received them directly from the shaman. I forgot the name of the shaman, but it was in the Andes Mountains. And then she was told that until I think it was 2012, that no one was allowed to receive the Munaiki rites until 2012, when when the high shamans, the elders, had said that it was time to release the rites into the world because the ascension and the evolution was at a point where people could receive them.
Yeah.
I It was interesting. My personal experience I hadn't shared with you is when I received the rights, I was told, her name was Brandy Cole, I believe. I think it's like Khol. She said during the initiation and the rites, the passing of the rites, that the elders came to her and said that I had already received the rights previously in an older lifetime, and that I didn't really need to receive them again, which was funny. And
Same.
she goes, "Well, really?"
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
Well, I see, and that makes sense to me because I mean, you know that I know you're a very old soul like me.
Yes, we definitely are.
We've been around the block lots and lots and lots of times.
Yeah. But I read
Yeah.
Alberto's book. I read Alberto Villoldo's book, Shaman Healer Sage, before I started studying it on my own, with my teacher. And he said the same
Yes.
thing you just said, that the shaman that he was working with said there was a point that they weren't supposed to share it, but then there came a point that he said it's time. So that's
Yes.
exactly what you were talking about. So that's awesome.
It is. It's a beautiful thing. It's funny because she still passed the rights to me anyway, but she thought it was just funny because she goes, "I've literally never had this happen before." And I said, "Yeah, I've been here off and on for a long time."
Yeah.
It's
It's interesting that you say that. And if I don't want to interrupt you too much, but if I could share a little bit about my experience that I remember when that happened, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm like
So
I'm
yeah, it's a lag, huh?
uh
With the Peruvian shamanism, they have, for the different chakras, the different animals. So for the base chakra, it's serpent, and then you have jaguar for the solar plexus, hummingbird. I'm sorry, sacral is jaguar, hummingbird, solar plexus, heart, eagle, condor, right? And
mhm,
so what she said is there was probably three, maybe four women in the group that we did this at her house. And so she worked on some other people first, and she's doing that for them. And she said, well, jaguar would go in as a cub, and hummingbird might go in as an egg, and they'll blossom as do all your work and everything. And she said, when she did me, she goes, they all went in full grown because they've been there before. Same thing, as you. So that's interesting that we have that in common, because I didn't know that until just now.
right.
I like that. It's interesting.
It is. I love that so much. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And it confirms so much for me about what I see with you anyway.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, well, and since I've known you in this lifetime, I mean, I told you you go. I knew you go way back. I mean,
Oh,
we've had some conversations in the past, but we're definitely very old in soul.
yeah, I agree.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes. Hmm.
Okay. So I have a couple questions for you. I want to ask you, who would you say has inspired you the most throughout the course of your life so far? And it doesn't have to be one person or any certain number, but just anybody that comes to you that you feel like you've been most inspired by.
That's a really good question that's probably going to be a little bit difficult to answer, because there are, of course, people who have inspired me. But on my journey, like however I was directed or thrusted onto my path to get where I'm at now, I just became a seeker, and I studied a lot. So there were spiritual teachers, authors, people that were extremely helpful to me. So I would call that inspiring. And there's a lot, even
Right.
certain biblical scholars, because there was just so much that I was absorbing. I feel like I learned a lot from Deepak Chopra. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that guy's a wonderful teacher, but there's just a lot of them, and it would be a list. So I don't know if I can just answer that right off the bat because there's a lot that goes into it. It's kind of there's a
Who do
lot.
you who do you feel like has like really been a big catalyst for you, like on certain stages of your spiritual awakening process?
I would say probably, and this started to happen towards the end of the training for the hypnotherapy, doing a guided meditation, but and then getting into the shamanism, opening to the guides. So I guess I would say ascended masters and guides, whatever those are, whether they're ancestors or animals, but a lot of animal guides, but opening to that, which some people get it and it has meaning to them, and other people might think it's weird, but I did start to work with ascended master guides. And so I guess I could say, and especially White Eagle, but and those guides were instrumental in me opening up to myself, to listening to my inner dialogue, or trusting that inner voice, whether it's telepathic, whatever it is.
I would have to say I can completely relate to that on so many levels, and I want to share briefly on that note. I've never shared this publicly before, but I actually had several dreams where um I remember the first one for me was I was in what looked like a city in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say, God, I don't even know what year it was. It's been a blur and we're in such a transition right now. I want to say it was like maybe 2018, maybe 2019. I don't know, somewhere around there. So in the dream, I was actually in this, what looked like a hotel suite, but it was really, really big, like conference type room. And I knew I was in a city in the sky because when we looked out the window, I saw the clouds above Earth, and
Mm-hmm.
I saw
Yeah.
and when I walked into the room, I was in my soul form. And
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes people have seen me like that in their dreams or in meditation. Um, but I had on a white dress and I had on a crown of roses, and it had jewels and gold and things like that in between the roses.
Cool.
I walk in and I look up, and I remember I was having a hard time, which, man, can that theme end in this life and the happy times be upon us? Because, geez. Um, but I remember I was having a difficult time, and I look up and I see Master Shah, who he does healing work here. I see the Dalai Lama, and I see trying to remember, there were so many, as I look around, it's like all the ascended masters, and I'm there, and I'm they're greeting me, and I it was the Dalai Lama walked over to me and he grabs me by my face and he called me by a name that I'm not gonna say on here, but I I remember he takes me to the window and he's holding my hand, and then he puts his arm around my shoulder and he goes, "How are you doing?" And I look at him and I just kind of put my head down and I look down out the window and I see the clouds and I see earth below. And I said, "It's really hard." And he starts talking to me, and I remember the conversation went on for a long time, and he's just kind of giving me guidance and saying, it's going to get better, but you have to get through these parts.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of Earth time, they don't have the same concept of how long time actually is going to be. when
Right.
they say it's gonna get better soon. um, but it is now, thank goodness, thank the whole universe. But it's been a fight, and it's been a lot to get to this point. But I remember looking around, and I remember seeing all the ascended masters and divine beings that were there gathered in that space. And I remember feeling home, and feeling home in myself, like it's safe to be
Mhm.
me. um
Yes.
yeah, and I know you get that.
Yes.
And then I have a funny one really quick. Prior to that, I was pregnant with my daughter. I was working with a woman named Nina Ellis. Maybe she'll see this one day. Um, and she was initiating me into like doing multi-level marketing stuff, and she was like, it's really easy to make passive income and blah blah blah. I was speaking to their higher up people, and the people that were making lots of millions, and I'm teaching them things and concepts and manifestation things, and they looked at me and they were like, how are you not a millionaire yet? I don't understand. And they're like, you're teaching us stuff that our higher up people who are really successful haven't even taught us, and I'm like, good question. I don't know. But probably
Yeah,
because I have to put the value on my work, and then it'll happen one day. Um
that's true.
so right, make it important, I guess. um
Yeah.
so And so, anyway, I remember during that time I was working with her, I had a dream at that time, and this dream popped back in my head. I remember it. I have remembered it intermittently over the years. But so me and her were at, again, it was a hotel. This was prior. So this was like, um, I was pregnant with my daughter, I think. So it was like 2015 or so. Um, and I'm laying in a, like, one of the long chairs. I forgot what they're called, lawn chairs or whatever,
Yeah.
on around the pool. And I look to my right, and to my right I see the Dalai Lama, and he's got swimming shorts on, and he's got like his robe draped over his left shoulder, and he has a towel, and he turns around and looks at me, and he winks with his right eye, and then he throws his towel over his right shoulder, and then he goes inside. I was like, okay.
That's cute.
It was. It was fun. So I share all of that because A, it's the first time me sharing things like that publicly, and B, because I love that you paid honor to them when I asked you that question. Because yes, they're very much here with us. We are one with them, and we're here doing the work on the ground level, no less.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I
Um,
feel like they're working with us and through us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Um, so I want to ask you, are you currently working on any projects or goals or things that you're excited about?
Um, so I've been doing the book publishing and not too much marketing with it, just focusing on the Facebook page, which has been doing well and actually fairly well just lately. But I want to do an oracle deck. So I do have like a guidebook ready for that. And then I have the artwork. I've been doing drawings and paintings. So I have all the artwork for it. And I've just been
Cool.
investigating like who to help me with that. So that's probably my next thing is getting that oracle deck going.
I actually think that I could potentially help you with that. So let's talk about that more another
Okay,
time.
cool.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right, great.
I have some experience with some of that stuff, and what I don't know, I could help you figure out for sure.
Okay,
That's
cool.
exciting.
Awesome.
So, what's your Oracle deck theme?
Oh, what's it called? Something like I haven't looked at them. I think it's Mystical Whispers of the. Let's see, something about that Mystical Whispers. But I have book titles that are similar, so I don't remember which one's which. But it's just like any oracle deck that would be inspirational, motivational, supportive type messages. Because some of my books, I used to do the long poetry and the bigger books, and then my books that I do now are smaller, shorter books, and a lot of non-rhyming stuff, discussions, and some rhyming stuff. Um, But let's see, what did I start to say? Oh, people told me that they will just open the book and get a message, so they use it like an oracle. So some
Awesome.
of the books are people will use for that purpose. So it's like, well, then since I've already got the artwork and stuff, maybe I should just do a deck.
Well, yes, and also I'm gonna for anybody that watches or listens back to this podcast, if you're interested in checking that out at a later date, I'll be linking Janine's websites and links to the YouTube video as well as the Spotify. So when that
Thank you.
deck is available, I'm gonna definitely link that because that's exciting. And I know there's a lot of people. A lot of people are doing TikTok live, Oracle decks. I mean, I actually have like several people pop up in my mind right now that would absolutely love, and I would of course be like, hey, better than what you're already using, okay?
Cool.
Like, you don't know the power behind what you're about to open up here.
Yeah, that's cool. I
I
appreciate
love
that.
how you are, or I just want to shout you out. Like, you're such an ancient soul, and you have so much wisdom and gifts to share with the world, and I just want to give you that honor because I know you don't shout out to the world all that you really are, and I really want to give you that honor because you're very special and you're important and your work is important, and it's important that the world knows who
Well,
you are.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And right back at you. Same to you. Absolutely. Appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate
Mm-hmm.
that. I want to ask you one more question, and then we'll go to the next piece, but I feel like this one is important. So with everything that you've already done and with what you're working on moving forward, what is your goal for or desire for helping to create a more positive impact in the world or change in the world through the work that you do, through your imprint, than before you got here? Like, what is Janine's gift to the world?
So that's a good question. I think there's a couple different aspects or components to that, and it's probably me just stepping into it more or putting it out there more. Whatever that is, I'm not exactly sure yet. Mostly, it's just been Facebook, a little bit of Instagram. I haven't posted anything on TikTok. I know a lot of people use it, and I do have the YouTube channel because I used to do videos on there, but my internet's poor and I can't
Yeah.
even upload stuff, so I haven't been doing that. But so I do work with people a lot of times over the phone if I do sessions. Um, and it's regression stuff with shamanic. It's just for whatever healing they need to do, it's to go in there, acknowledge it, address it, guide them to do their own work and share tools with them. So I do that on an as needed basis, part time or less than part time. My most of my focus has been on the books. So I would like to do more of the healing work, but I don't actively go out and pursue it. I mean, if it comes to me, then I'm available for it. But so most of the work has been on the divinely inspired messages, whatever that is, through the writing, which is mostly poetic, but not all of it. And so, whatever it is, because some people channel things and they know they're channeling.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but people say that stuff's channeled that I do, and I'm sure it is, but I don't have direct knowledge of exactly who or what that is. So I draw from my experiences. So if I've learned something and it resonates and I carry that with me and I add it to my knowledge, whatever I do, but it's also the wisdom that I've gained from my experiences. So I'm writing about wisdom I've gained, what I learned from it, if it's from emotional stuff, whatever the inspiration is, even if it's stuff that came from anger from before, whatever it is.
Right.
I know that I'm pulling it from myself, but also I'm writing, and so where am I? One time when I did the Moon Key Rites, my great
Yeah.
great grandmother was a poet, and I have some of her stuff. And when we did the Moon Key Rites, my teacher said, "Oh, there's like a jittery old lady here for you." And I didn't know who it was, but I have a psychic friend, and my mom goes, "Oh, it's probably your great great grandmother." I'm like, "Oh yeah." So I mean, who's working through me? Probably many beings. Do I know
Yes.
exactly who they are and when it's happening? No. So like I'll write things and it flows, and it just flowed profusely for years, and it's slowed down now. but I'm still doing it. But I would write and write and write and put it in my book files. And then I look back at what I wrote and I'm like, wow, because yeah, I wrote it, but do I remember everything I wrote? No. Could I tell you where a lot of it came from? Yeah, probably. So like, I don't know exactly what that is, but I guess I'm just open to let it flow through and draw
Mhm.
from my own experiences or wisdom or whatever you want to call it. My feelings, my emotions, what I've learned, how I apply that. And some people might find it helpful. Some people might not like the way I say it because I'm very direct most of the time. So, people find the messages and they say, this has helped me so much. So the feedback's really helpful. People say to me that, like, oh, it's like you're looking into my soul, or you're telling my story, or this is exactly what I needed to hear today. So that kind of stuff is nice because then it lets you know, okay, this is doing some good. It's helpful, and it's nice that helps keep you going, or inspires you to keep doing the work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Gives you that affirmation in your heart and your soul, like, okay,
Hmm.
I've been doing all this work and I've been bringing all this forward, and to have people, even though they might think it's a small attribution back to you, to just say, hey, this really impacted me, and they want to let you know, it's like that means so much to us.
Yeah, it does. It
It
definitely
does.
does. And those are gifts to me. When I get those nice comments, that is like a wonderful gift to me, and I cherish it.
It is, and it keeps the fire going. It's like, okay, this is worth it. Like, this is happening for a reason. This is actually helping people, and that's what makes our soul happy. I mean, that's what this is all about.
Hmm.
We and
Yes.
I know, I don't mean to speak for you, but I feel like you resonate. We don't do all this for praise. We just do it because we want to make a positive impact in the world, and it's just such a good feeling in our heart and soul to have people say, absolutely, you're helping me. Thank you for what you just gave to the world, because
Hmm.
had you not done that, I wouldn't have had that help.
So we give what we feel called to give or to do, and then people give us something back, and it's like a balance.
Yes,
So that's
it's
kind of nice.
yeah, it's an exchange of love and
Mm,
energy. I feel
definitely.
to what you're saying, because I've always been a channel my whole life. I mean, it's what we do.
Mm,
When you're writing and you're bringing all this information and poetry and just shared wisdom from above, through the physical vessel and into writing to share with the world, you're doing work of a priestess, a high priestess. You're doing work of a goddess. You're doing divine being work. And yes, you don't know every single presence and energy stream that the consciousness that comes through us is, where that's from when you're writing it down. It's just the way, and I feel like it's important for people to understand this who are still learning, or even if you already do understand this, just a confirmation of, when it's right, when it feels like inspiration in your heart. And when your heart
yeah.
goes, yes, yes, that, write that down, that's important. Then it's
Amen.
like, yeah. So it's like, people, because when I was younger, I was like, okay, well, how do I know where that's coming from? And what if it's not a good presence, or what if it's this or that? And fear can play a really big part in the spiritual community, when people are, especially when people are first awakening. And so it's important for people who are going through their spiritual journey and of awakening to understand, that it's good and it's right when you're channeling, when it feels good in your heart. And that's how you discern what is truly divine inspiration and for the highest good. And if it doesn't feel good and it feels like something that just does not feel good inside your heart, then it obviously don't continue channeling that.
Right.
And I want to say that, two things. One, if anybody's interested in receiving healing from Janine, please really consider going to her for healing, because she is far more powerful than she gives herself credit for. And
That's
follow
probably
the
true.
it, it- follow the links that are on the video, because that's how you're going to find her. I love
Thank you.
I love that we're finally having a chance to sit down and talk. So I wanted to kind of give you an opportunity to really talk more about what you're comfortable sharing, but we're going to be doing, for people that are followers and fans of the Cosmic Heart podcast and want to hear more, we're going to be doing, there will be more series. I don't know how many different series on the podcast just as of yet, but we're going to be specifically talking about, on one series, narcissism and the spiritual root of it. And we're going to be talking about, well, me and Janine specifically are going to be sharing some personal stories on our experiences, not today, but in future episodes, of what our experiences are of narcissism and essentially how we've been able to find ways to heal from it. The real, the raw, the non-sugar coated, this is what it
Right.
really took, because there's a lot of knowledge about what narcissism looks like. There's a lot of demonizing of narcissistic people, which I have totally been guilty of, being in the hurt stages, which in some of them I'm still healing from immensely. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but really getting to the root of understanding what narcissism is, and how to really heal on a foundational level. So that's just a shout out to future episodes. um, but I wanted to open up the floor for you to really share just whatever you're comfortable with, but you're kind of more on like your backstory of when you were younger. How did your journey go for your awakening process, and kind of like the steps on what you were guided to, like different modalities that you came into feeling guided to learn, and when you realize like it's time to start writing. And I just feel like that'll help some people to kind of push them to, if they're getting guidance on certain things, it's important to listen, because look how far you've come and look how much you've accomplished just by listening to your divine inspiration. Even though you were going through so much at the time, you accomplished so much just by listening to that divine guidance. So just more
Right.
sharing, like I said, like just what your story has been for your awakening path.
Okay. So when I was younger, I don't know that I was really tuned into stuff. Like, I think there's things we don't even know about ourselves. And I've learned a lot about myself from psychic people like yourself, people that have that gift, that are intuitive, that can see something about you and they tell you because otherwise you didn't remember. Because I do feel like we come into amnesia when we
Yes.
come here. So I think I knew I was spiritual in a way, but I didn't even know what that was. And I was brought up Christian, not fundamentalist, thankfully. But, and so there was the limited understanding of whatever that was or was supposed to be, or whatever I thought it was, and being good and doing right, and the programming, and didn't even know that's what it was. And so, and then I was always like to read, and I did try to write, and I used to like to read historical romance novels. So back in the day when I was writing, it's like, oh, maybe I'll try to write a novel. And that was before the internet and everything like that. Really, that was just coming before that came on board. But um, let's see. I went
That's
through a divorce. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I just said that's pretty cool. You were reading historical romance novels.
Used to love them.
Awesome.
But anyway, so I didn't read a lot of nonfiction at that point. It was just fiction. But anyway, and so I went through a divorce, and then I remarried, and we went through a series of unfortunate events of losses, which mainly started with losing our house in a wildfire, losing the business right after that, and the global economic collapse, the falling away of relationships. And what I noticed, and this is what put me on the path to where I'm at now, so that's why I mention these things that lead up to it, but is that I had an experience where I observed people that I knew, whether they're longtime friends, family members, whatever it is, that became into the uber religious Christian zealot, whatever you want to call it, where
Yeah.
it was heinous judgment that they probably
Mm.
don't see in themselves, and shunning you. It's just, it's not of God, but whatever. So I observed that. I felt what that felt like. And so, however that felt hurtful to me, whatever that process of healing is, and however long that takes, I don't even know. But
Right.
so I decided to really study. So we're living in a trailer before the rebuilding of the house and all the process of that hellacious exercise.
Please.
I started to really study. Well, I went back to college and I did humanities, intro to the New Testament, critical thinking, philosophy. What was the other one? Did I say world religions? I was studying religions. I wanted to know more about Christianity. I was studying biblical scholars. To say so, I started just going deeper into Christianity and finding out that it's not what I thought it was. So I'm
Right.
glad that I became a seeker, and I'm glad that I stepped out of that dogmatic box and lit match to that thing, and that I'm not in that anymore. So I started to become more aware of what it was and what it wasn't for me, and that I wanted to write about it, but also the healing. So then I did Reiki. I did the Reiki 1, the
Hmm.
Reiki 2. And then I had read years ago that book, Embraced by the Light, about the near death experience by Betty J.E. And then I read it again, like, I don't know, 14, 15 years later. And she talked about becoming a hypnotherapist. I'm like, I want to learn more about that. So I found a place in San Diego County called the Motivational Institute of Hypnotherapy. And I did the Ericksonian hypnosis, probably a little different than the one you did, because yours was Dolores Cannon, I think. So,
Yeah.
but it was Ericksonian hypnosis, energy psychology, so muscle testing, kinesiology, EFT, um, cognitive behavioral hypnotherapy, the Tad James regression work, and then NLP. And then I did an internship to get the clinical hypnotherapist. So I got all those certifications, and that was amazing. And it's like, if people say, why are you taking those classes? Why are you learning that? The answer is to help myself through what I had been through. And I went to
Mm-hmm.
this psychic lady that did like spirit energy healing for, I knew I needed spiritual healing. And I went to her and she would read the chakras and she told me something about a past life. And at the time I didn't know if I was open to that. And then later on, I was able to figure out how to get the answers. And she had told me this little piece of information. And when I looked it up, because it was traceable in history, that piece was right there. I'm like, oh my God. So I was just opening to so many things.
Yeah.
Um, but then I did the shamanic stuff, and relationships falling apart in the meantime, and trying to hold things together and not knowing which way to go, and just a shit show basically.
Yeah.
but the shamanism was great because I loved the hypnotherapy, and then the shamanism was like an even more wow factor. So
Yeah.
I was able to use that to help myself. I've been able to use that to help others. And so those are huge blessings. And then what I would do was I would write. So I started to write. I did some poetry after my divorce, like in 97, 98. I did a little bit, and it kind of got me interested. That's how I could express myself. That's how it came out. Didn't do it for years. 2015, I started doing it again. And I haven't stopped since 2015, and I've got like over 100 books. So
Wow.
that's the main point of focus, is the messages that come through the writings. And a lot of it I have woven in. The energy healing stuff that I learned is sometimes woven into some of those messages. So that's where I'm
100%.
at now. Yeah.
That's so awesome. So like when I published my book, the manifestation mantras book that I haven't even mentioned it on the podcast yet.
I was going to
Um,
mention it because I'm waiting for it in the mail, and I want to say kudos to you on your book.
oh,
You're welcome. I can't wait to get my copy.
So it looks so simple, and I downplayed it for so long, but I'm so happy that you mentioned weaving the healing energies into the books, because that honestly is so imperative to the power behind what sets the writings that we do apart from a lot of other books. Is when I did mine as well, it was channeled mantras. It was I went through the campfire. I went through 3 fires after that, literally like all in the same year, um,
Wow.
in, in like a 3 or 4 month period. And it was so crazy. And the, so I wrote that book with my daughter's crayons on pieces of printer paper, channeling.
Cool. I love it.
Like
I love it. Yeah.
part of the time I was evacuated, and I was just
Oh,
channeling.
yeah. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so there was like and I was like, I was praying. I was constantly channeling all of that. I mean, I do anyway, but I mean, during that time, it was like so hectic and so it was scary, you know, and it was like a big trust moment where it was like, all right, like I almost lost my mom, my oldest son, Gabriel, my stepdad, my grandparents, my brother, they were all stuck in the campfire. So it was so like just it was a deep trust moment. And when the campfire happened, I actually asked for the angelic realm and for God, the creator, to put a shield over my mom's property. When the firefighters went back to the property to see if the house made it, my brother entered in, and my brother is an old ancient soul and understands my work very, very well. He actually took a picture, and in the grass around the house, even though the flames burnt part of the paint on the outside of the house, there was literally the shape of a shield around the entire property.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. That's
And yeah,
so cool.
I just
I
got
love it.
chills saying that. And I haven't shared that publicly yet until now. And when that happened, the houses, literally every single other house burned down. My grandparents are next door to my mom. Their house made it, and my mom's house made it.
Amazing. That's beautiful.
Uh, right next door to my mom's house, completely demolished, gone, burned down.
So weird.
Um, her barn, her shed, her garage, everything else gone. Everything from my childhood that was remnants left over, the little things that I had left, all that burned down. But the house made it, and my grandparents' house made it, which was such a miracle by itself. Um,
Yes.
but during that time I was writing, and I just wanted to share also that, like, because I do as you do master healing energy work, it was like such a natural thing for me. As I was writing the book, I channeled symbols. I bought a gold calligraphy marker, and I drew the healing symbols into my pages of my book, and I took pictures of it, and then I put them in as pages of the book.
Cool.
It was, and so you can feel the energy and the power of the energy in all the symbols throughout the whole book. And then I actually was guided to draw with that same gold marker the image that was coming to me for excuse me, resemblant of the holy fire.
Okay.
And yeah,
Cool.
so it's in the book. But when I published it with Balboa Press, the subdivision of Hay House, they wanted it to be black and white. So my original was in color, and the other one is in black and white. So it's a little bit sad because I was like, you can't even see the gold, but you can still feel the energy in there. So yeah, I so respect the fact that you have that same, like, heart set mindset of like, okay, you know, the people that get it will get it, and the people that don't, that's fine. But your books contain so much more than just words. It's wisdom shared, it's channeled, beautiful stories, it's poetic beauty, it's a soul like experience when you actually give it a moment to sit with it.
Yeah. Thanks.
So shout out to Janine Palmer's.
I'll be sharing your book on my poetry page when I get it.
Oh, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
I appreciate that. Okay, so I feel like that's good for today. I'm very, very happy with what we were able to bring forth. I am so thankful to have you on, genuinely from my heart. Like, it's lovely to talk to you. I haven't talked to you in so long, and I've honestly wondered how you've been and just wanting to catch up and see what's going on. But as you know, this has been words can't even
Mm-mm.
they can't even touch what these last several years have been. But we can say something that a lot of people can't, and that's we're still here.
True. That's
I
true.
mean, we made it, right?
Hmm. Yep.
Unless this is fantasy. in which case this is, I mean, we could like imagine a little bit better, but you know.
And thank you for the invitation to be here with you today. I'm honored to do it, and I'm very grateful. So thank you so
I'm
much.
so happy. You're so welcome. But I'm so happy to have you on the beginning episodes. It's really awesome. And you're part of the foundation of the Cosmic Heart podcast. So thank you for
Okay, great.
being here.
You're
Okay, well,
welcome.
I'm excited and I look forward to doing our narcissism series. I know that word has such a gross energy behind it, but the um, the goal is to heal it collectively.
Yeah. Yes.
And so that starts now, and that starts with the work that we're doing moving forward, which is awesome.
Okay.
And I'm honored and proud to be a part of healing that collectively because I feel like it's important and it's time.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, well, thank you so much for being on, and I will talk to you soon.
Okay, take care. Bye. Bye, everybody.